Hey guys, it's Kayla Thompson. Welcome back to Shared News. I am here with my girl, Morgan Wright. Haven't seen her in forever, so I'm super excited to break
No.
down this week's episode of The Bachelorette with her. Please join in the conversation with us because we are live today, so make sure you're commenting in the live chat. And also go ahead and give this video a like, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell, do all the things because we got to get into this episode, Morgan. It's been a minute since I've seen you. I was just telling you off, line how I miss you. And
I
I have to ask you
know.
like
It
how
has
you've
been a
been
long
feeling
time.
about this season of The Bachelorette. Like I don't even know where your gauge is at. Like usually you're like I hate Bachelor. So what are you feeling about the season so far?
Yeah, I am, overly critical of The Bachelor in the past, but I think this season is so great. It has honestly restored
Yeah.
my hope because I've been a longtime Bachelor fan, but the past couple of seasons, I feel like honestly, with everything in life, in the COVID era and post-COVID era, I
Mhm.
just feel like it hasn't been the same. And I don't know if it's
Mhm.
editing decisions, if it's casting decisions, but this to me feels as close as we've gotten to, a classic Bachelorette season
Yeah.
that we grew up watching, So I'm so happy. You and I have been charity stands since she
Yeah.
first stepped out
We
of the
have.
limo in that hot pink sequin dress on Zach's season, so I'm
Yes.
just so happy. I'm relieved because I feel like it gives us some hope for
Mhm.
the Bachelor franchise in the future.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the way that they're producing the season is really, really good. It's a balance of like we've gotten the drama, with the Bradens and stuff like that in this season and all
Mhm.
that stuff. But also we've gotten so much romance and like the fact that, there's so many strong connections and I'm kind of like, man,
Mhm.
I feel like I know maybe who can win, but then there's also this person, this connection, and this person. It's like that's what made watching The Bachelor and The Bachelorette fun back in the day was, you're really like, who are they gonna pick? Like I'm actually so invested in these relationships that are being built. And that's how I feel this season. And with Charity as a bachelorette, I think she's also carrying the season so well. She's so sweet and graceful and poised, but also she brings the sass, brings the fire. She's thoughtful, she's funny, she's bubbly. It's just all the things. And, also we're getting so much diversity. So it's just been a really cool season so far. So I'm excited
Agreed.
about what's to
All
come
points agreed.
for sure. We agree. We're on the same page here. So let's get into the episode because we have 4 dates to talk about. So we need to get moving. Um, I have to say, 6 guys left. Crazy that we're moving this fast. We're only on episode 5. We are in NOLA. We're in New Orleans. And we kind of set the tone about like kind of where this is going a little bit. Um, and when it comes to Tanner and Sean, especially, I would say like we'll talk about them later and kind of like where they're at and people getting time, people not getting time, like that sort of thing. So let's talk Joey's one-on-one date. Tell me your thoughts. Break it down for us where you're at with Joey's date.
Yeah, well, I think that Joey is quite clearly a fan favorite already. People are comparing him to Greg Grippo, which if you love Greg Grippo, I think that's a good thing. If you don't like him, maybe it's not so good. But I think you can tell there is also a real genuine connection there with Joey. He's definitely a front runner, although
Yeah,
my favorite is Dotun, which I'm sure we will get into that here coming up soon. But Joey, he's very sweet, he's very sensitive, and, I really
for
think
sure.
that he's going to go far.
Yeah,
What do you
absolutely.
think of
I
Joey?
totally agree. I love Joey. I was thinking about it earlier like well, okay, first off, let me just start here with their date. I love that this date was about just them being in the city together, horse-drawn carriage, they're eating, they're dancing, getting their fortunes read. The poetry was amazing and just hearing how Joey talks about Charity, I'm like blown away with how much he really feels for her and it's so beautiful, it's so romantic. I feel the chemistry with them, and I like to piggyback off what you said. I'm like, man, I thought it was kind of Dotun for the past few weeks, but now I'm like, geez, maybe it is Joey. Like, I don't know. It's yeah, yes, okay.
Yeah, we're having just
Mm.
some technical difficulties over here. So,
Sorry,
Kayla, I'm just
guys.
going to give you a second. No, it's okay. And I'll go ahead and kind of pick up where you left off when it comes to Joey. Like Kayla was saying, their connection is very effortless. It seems like their boyfriend and girlfriend, kind of what Joey alluded to. When I was watching this scene, we hear a lot, especially in recent seasons, about leads playing the part of the Bachelorette. Like we heard it with Katie Thurston in particular, but I also feel like, post show, we've heard it about Gabby and Rachel. I can't necessarily think of anybody saying that about The Bachelor, but you understand the sentiment I'm getting at. I feel like what we see between Joey and Charity is real and authentic, and neither one of them are playing a part. And when Joey said, I feel like I was just hanging out with my girlfriend, that kind of just reiterated that feeling for me. Also, during their night portion, they really started talking about some serious stuff. Charity thought or asked him what he thought about being in an interracial relationship, which obviously is something that she's dealt with in the past. I'm not sure if Joey has. We really didn't get a whole lot of, I mean, based on the context clues, I think we can assume that he hasn't, just based on how that conversation went. But she was saying that her last experience with someone who wasn't Black, there was a lot of judgment when they would go out. And he did say he didn't understand, but was not going, or the, excuse me, I'm sorry. Her former boyfriend didn't understand and was a bit ignorant to that experience. So I was really glad, welcome back, Kayla, that they had this very
Thank you.
important conversation on
Mhm.
camera. And I think both of them handled it with such grace and class. Kayla, I want to hear your perspective more on this conversation during their night portion of the date.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I hope that my audio is better now.
We're good.
It's good?
Yeah,
We're
we're
good to
good.
go?
Yep.
Technical stuff, whatever. Technology. So, yes, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the episode, because one, it's interesting. I didn't really expect Charity to ask that question. I think a lot of times in the franchise, they don't really feel comfortable to talk about race. So I just really commended both of them for having, having that conversation. And I loved Joey's response. I think Joey's response was very respectful. First of all, his body language spoke everything because you can tell on his face he wasn't afraid to have that conversation when she opened it up. And I think that said a lot that he was honest about him not experiencing that before, but saying like I'm more than willing to learn because if we were to have kids, like that's going to be just as much a part of my life as it is yours, and which has so much wisdom in it. And I think also him just saying, "Hey, like I see you for the entirety of who you are. I'm falling in love with the entirety of who you are, including you being Black and your experience being Black." And that's such a beautiful thing to say because most times people will say, "I don't see that you're Black. I don't see your color," which is like, well, why not? Like that's a great thing about me. So it was just very like his perspective was so healthy, and it was exactly what obviously Charity wanted to hear because she got emotional about it, and I think it just connected them more. And so I love that they had that conversation and that it went well. And yeah, Joey's a huge front runner to me at this point. Um, and I don't know about you, Morgan. Where are you at when it comes to Joey? Because this was a really, really strong date, and they said they were falling in love. She didn't say it back
Yeah.
to him, but she said it in the ITM. So kind of that was the first time she said at all that she was falling in love. So pretty huge.
Yeah, I think he's definitely I mean, he's top 3, top 2. I don't know if he's gonna win, and it might just because I'm extremely biased towards Dotun because I love him so much. So even if she said that she loved him back, I'd still be like, "But Dotun is still there." So, I think that Joey has a very strong chance of being the next Bachelor. I've seen a lot of people kind of put that out
Mm,
there. He's really in touch with his emotions. He's really mature. It
yeah.
seems like he's there for the right reasons, no matter how cliche it will be. So while I don't want to see him end up with Charity, because you know why, I would like to see him be the next Bachelor.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. A part of me though is a little worried about him being the bachelor because he's so like such a romantic, such in his feelings, wears his heart on his sleeve. I don't want him to accidentally like easily fall for someone for the and them not really be for the right reasons or it not be
Mm.
really be the right person for him or something like that and him get a little like lost in it all. And I don't know. I think I may be more like I love him and Charity together just as much as Dotun. Like I really am cool with whoever she picks. But yeah, I don't know. So that's where I'm at. But of course, if Joey was the lead, I would love to see him as a bachelor. But that's just my pause there with it. But like I said, I think it's interesting to, have a finale. Well, I'm expecting him to be final 2 with Dotun, where I'm like, "Man, I don't know who she's gonna pick," and I would love whoever she's gonna pick. So, anyway, let's move on to the next date of the episode. We had a two-on-one with Tanner and Sean. It's interesting to just have one without 2 people who hate each other, I guess, because usually that's what the two-on-ones are for, the drama. We had a gator tour on the bayou. First of all, I loved the captain, he was hilarious. It was clear that Sean was kind of the main one stepping up on the date, Tanner being more quiet. But when they got to the night portion, Tanner did open up, so that helped him, I think, a little bit because she decided not to give the rose out. And Sean was really struggling with that, but Tanner was clearly happy about it. Um, but yeah, I kind of figured she wasn't gonna give that rose out. So keep it real with me, Morgan. Were you surprised at all about how this date went?
I mean, no. We all know that these 2 are
Yeah,
not gonna end up with her, and it's like, even watching
exactly.
this date, I was like, "What is going on?" Seeing Sean, like, full on
Right.
spiral over it, I was like, "Dude, you haven't hung out with her in a individual setting," and he says he's in the process of starting to fall in love with her, like, to me,
Mhm.
Sean was, like, playing the part of what you're supposed to say when you're on The Bachelorette and what
Mhm.
you're supposed to do
Yeah.
when you're on The Bachelorette, and it just didn't sit right with me, so we can just honestly breeze over this because I thought it was
Exactly.
a waste of time, honestly.
Exactly. Okay, cool. So let's talk about your fave, Dotun. He had his
Okay.
one-on-one, his second one-on-one, back-to-back episodes, second one-on-one, which I feel like is a huge, huge sign. But they went on a fun run. They were talking to people. They're so natural together. So of course, I knew this date was gonna go well. They had an amazing time. I feel like Charity is like her full self with Dotun. I feel like
Mhm,
she's really comfortable with Joey and it's easy with Joey, but I think maybe it is the like interracial piece of it all that kind of had her guard up a little bit, but with Dotun it's like she's just fully letting go. So,
mhm.
yeah. I mean, what do you think? Big sign that it's I mean, you're clearly team Dotun, but him having a
I
back-to-back one-on-one is was pretty
know.
big. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you
Yeah.
think about it in terms of the lead, and I know producers kind of nudge the leads on what, one-on-one dates they're gonna go on, but if you are thinking
Mhm.
seriously about getting engaged to somebody in 6 weeks, you wanna spend as much time as possible with that person. So if Charity feels in
Yeah.
her gut, "Oh, Dotun might really be the one," she's gonna try to spend
Mhm.
as much time as possible with him to make sure that when she
Mhm.
gets to the final rose ceremony, she feels comfortable accepting, the final rose and getting engaged to
Yeah.
him. My one fear is that it does, and they talk about this in the night portion, it does
Mhm.
feel a little too perfect. Like maybe this is an editing not trick, but they're really wanting the audience to
Mhm.
fall in love with the idea of Charity and Dotun, and I hope it's not to get to the end and have this huge plot twist that has Bachelor Nation,
Mhm.
up in arms. I feel I don't
Yeah.
know why, but I feel something in my gut saying that something similar is going to happen that happened with Michelle, Brandon, and Nate, where we all were like,
Okay.
"Michelle, it's Brandon. What are you thinking? He's so in love with you. He's perfect for you." And
Yeah.
then she picks Nate.
Mhm.
I'm really hoping that
Yeah.
that's not the case because I do believe Charity and Dot and their relationship, their connection is so strong. But
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm spiraling. I just love him so much.
No, no, it's true. I think that it could be said either way around. I think that that's what I like so much about this season, the way it's going when because between Joey and Dotun, it's like I see the connection insanely strong with both, and I see the
Mhm,
editing leaning towards both just as much as well. I think
mhm,
so. I don't know. We'll have to see. Kind of. I think once we get through hometowns, we can kind of gauge more on where we're at with that, but yeah, I mean, because even at the night portion, he says he's falling in love with her, and her response to that was like, "Oh my god, I'm beaming, I'm bubbling," and of course, he got the rose and everything. She didn't necessarily say she was falling in love with him too, but again, that could be editing. We don't know if they left it out or not, but yeah, I don't think you should be worried though. At the end of the day, I think either choice is such a good choice, like for
mhm.
someone for her. And honestly, at this point, I am leaning more towards Dotun being the final pick somewhere in my gut. So, but again, we'll have to just see as the weeks continue. But let's talk about Sean because he was done basically. When Dotun came back from this date with the rose, Sean was over it. And he basically goes to talk to Charity to, I guess, get validation, honestly, because he fought to ask for her to get another one on one, which I was like, there's not enough dates in the episode. What do you mean? We can't do another one on one, Sean. It's over. Um, and so, of course, I mean, this was inevitable. She breaks up with him, and they realize that, she can't get there. She's not going to be able to get there at all with him. But my
Yeah.
question for you, Morgan, is do you think Sean was that as upset as he seemed in the ITM about getting sent home?
I mean, I'm so confused by Sean. How can he have I mean,
Mhm.
we know that they get limited time. Even if you do get a one-on-one date, you're spending like 12 hours. He probably face to face alone time with her like 2 hours
Mhm.
maybe. And then that's kind of why I say I feel like he's like playing he's saying what he thinks people want to hear. He's saying what producers want to hear because Sean and maybe we just didn't see any of it, but Sean has never
Yeah.
been a front runner or even like a middle of the pack. Like when she picked Sean over
Barely.
John last week, we were all like,
Yeah,
"What?
that was
Like who's
crazy.
this
If this was
guy?"
John, I'd be like, "Oh, I feel more for this if this was John," but I haven't even really seen a lot of moments with Sean, so I was like, "Sean, what?
Right.
I'm so lost."
Yep.
Yeah, so I definitely agree. And moving into the group date, I mean, we had Tanner who had already had a date earlier and Xavier and Aaron, and I mean, I pretty much knew how this was going to go too. Um Aaron and her have a good conversation. He's excited to bring her home and he talks about the week being tough, but he's just so happy, which first of all, I have to say Aaron he was making me laugh so hard in this episode because he was just so stressed out about not getting a one-on-one and being in NOLA, and it was just like I was like, "Aaron, just relax." So of course that goes well. She does talk to Tanner again, but there's still not a resolution. But the real big conversation in this group date was Xavier. Xavier is
Mhm.
clearly stressed out about, I guess, just getting down to the wire, and he's, I think, just coming to terms with where his feelings are at with Charity, and he wants to be honest with her about just his perspectives on commitment, and he's tells her that the idea of commitment is kind of scary. He only wants to do it once. He wants to get engaged one time. Doesn't want to kind of mess it up, and he knows he wants that he wants marriage, but he's not sure if she's the one, and he's not falling in love yet, so he's kinda like he can get there, he thinks, but he's like, "Can I get there in this time?" I think is kinda where he was at, but Did you feel like this conversation was a little bit of a red flag?
I think it's realistic of him to say that, it's like they haven't
Yeah.
had a lot of time together, but is it a red flag in Bachelor world? Absolutely. I mean, in the normal world, when you're on your second date, you wouldn't expect someone to say that to you, and you would probably be like, "Yeah, we're not gonna get married."
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
You're
But when you're
right.
the
Why are you
Bachelorette
talking
and
about
you
that?
have, 4 other guys that are, or at least 2, telling you that I'm falling in love with you, I could see us at the end of this. It probably
Mhm.
does raise some red flags in Charity's mind. This is where my
Yeah.
conspiracy theory kind of starts to get a bit stickier, because in the past episode, she's
Ooh.
compared Xavier to an ex of hers that she said, he
Mhm.
reminds me of this. And I feel like that's where I feel like the plot twist may come, where she might end up with Xavier, where like, all these kind of red flags have
Oh.
been playing out. And, we see someone as clear as day winning, Dotun or Joey, and then,
Mhm.
fantasy suite week gets a little sticky and she really starts to feel these feelings of someone who reminds her of a past relationship. And then she goes down that road. Now,
Okay.
obviously, we know that Xavier and her ex are two different people, and we shouldn't,
Right.
judge him off that. Absolutely. But he's just not getting a
Mhm.
lot of screen time. So we'll see. We'll
Mhm.
see if it shifts, how it shifts. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm just waiting for the ball to drop.
Yeah, I can see where you get that conspiracy from for sure because of just past seasons, how they've edited like the cold feet whole scenario,
Hmm.
right? But I
Yep.
will say I think her and Xavier have such a strong chemistry. But I will say I think I'm sticking to my final two is still Dotun and Joey. I don't think that their connection is anywhere close to theirs. I think he's still kinda light years away from
Hmm.
her bawling, crying on a Joey date and a Dotun date, so but yeah, I don't think it was a red flag. I think he was just being honest. I think in 6 weeks, being engaged to someone, it's a lot to ask. I think it takes this really special connection, and I don't know if her and Xavier have that connection, so I thought it was fair. Of course, she gives Aaron the rose, so Aaron gets a hometown, but she leaves 1 rose left, and she's gonna save it for the night portion, but then she doesn't actually save it for the night portion. Like, well, she kinda does, but they don't have a night portion really. She just ends up going to talk to Tanner, and they inevitably break up. Which I'm glad that she broke up with Tanner in this way because face to face, just because I think Tanner is such a respectable guy. I think he's really tried and it was just nice to see him get at least that, you know you know what I mean? Just at least get that.
Yeah.
He deserved that, I think, instead of getting broken up at a rose ceremony. So, um, and yeah, she ends up giving the rose to Xavier. She kind of teases him around it as if she's not gonna give it to him because I don't have to give this rose out, but I want to give it out. So I was like, girl, put the rose on his chest and hush. And so she does. He's over the moon about it, of course. He's really happy, and the final 4 is locked. We've got Xavier, Joey, Dotun, and Aaron. So, how are you feeling about this final 4? Any predictions for next week? How do you think hometowns are gonna go?
Well, first of all, I wanna say I think it's very bizarre that they did not do a typical rose ceremony. Was that the first time
Yeah,
ever that they gave out all of the roses on dates and didn't have an actual rose ceremony with Jesse Palmer? I mean, I cannot remember that
that's
ever
a good
happening.
point. Yeah, because we didn't see Jesse the entire episode.
Yeah.
Super weird.
Yeah, so I don't
Yeah, we
know
just
what
heard
was
his
going
voice
on.
when he was telling Trent
And
from Barstool to not take out the suitcase
yeah.
of the 2-on-1. Yeah, it was weird. It wasn't weird to not have a rose ceremony. It's a good point.
But yeah, next week I think it's gonna get intense. Obviously, hometown week. It's a big week. Fantasy Suites right around the corner. She has this moment where she's in a black sparkly gown and she sends somebody off, and it really, really reminded me of JoJo when JoJo was in the
Oh
blue
my god,
sparkly dress and she sent
yes.
Luke Bell home and she was sobbing. It was really giving same energy. And JoJo
Yep.
is also one of my
Yep.
favorite bachelorettes. So I think next week is gonna
Same.
get it's gonna keep getting more wild and more wild as we go on. But
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think
Yeah.
Charity has a good head on her shoulders. I think she'll make the right decision.
Mhm. I think so too. I agree. I think the next few weeks we're gonna see a lot of crying and Charity being very indecisive because
Mhm.
I think all of her final four are amazing options. I think all of them would make amazing partners. I really do. I think some specifically are better for charity than others.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm going into Final Four hometowns like very interested because I think each could be one to watch. So excited for next week for sure. Make sure you guys leave us a comment about what your predictions